I remember back in high school, I used to be super excited to grow up. You know what I mean? Like, getting the adult money, having the adult time, doing the adult things. I was so excited for it. And now that I'm at that ripe age, right? Now that I'm an adult, I realize it was all a fucking scam. And there's one question, just like this individual has, that I've been asking honestly since I've watched Cat Williams' interview on the Shay Shay Club. I've been asking this question ever since. Let's get into it.
It's shit like Simon says, what I say go, my goods be doing the most.
I do my very best to ask the hard questions and come up with some answers, but there is one answer that has been eluding me, and I can't quite figure it out. I can't nail it down. And that's why I'm reaching out to y'all for help. Because I don't think there's a single person out there that has all the answers, but collectively, I think we can come up with a few. And this isn't about being right or wrong. This is just about seeing if we can figure this stuff out. Because it pays to know what we're up against. It pays to understand what's coming. That way we can prepare. Because preparation is very important. Especially today, where things are very, very uncertain. And let's call this our war room. Everybody else has a war room, so why can't we? And in this war room, we're going to run an exercise. And we're going to call it Operation Why Now? Because that right there is the one question that I can't answer. It's the one question that apparently no one can answer. And I would actually even say that it's the one question that no one is asking often enough. Because everybody's looking at the details, all the stuff that's coming out, all the changes that we're experiencing. Everybody's focused on that, but nobody's asking this question or trying to find the answer to this question. Why now? Why are we seeing all this stuff come out now? Why is all this stuff happening right now? Why does there appear to be such urgency around all the stuff that is happening? Why now? And we're going to go down this list because there are quite a few things that I think stand out, and they're all happening at the same time. And that's going to tie into answering this question. I think that's going to help us understand why now. So the first thing, and I would say that this all kind of started around the time that these files got released, and that is the JFK files. So, this is something people have been asking for a long time. Very long time. I mean, decades. Almost generations at this point. And there's been a lot of controversy around the JFK assassination. There's been a lot of conspiracies and theories and stuff like that. And up until this point, nobody's had the answers. Now all of a sudden, these files get released. And yes, the information in there is kind of a big nothing burger. A lot of it's redacted, so you can't even see a lot of it. But there seems to be some form of transparency around putting this stuff out into the public. So that kind of kicks this off in the realm of why now. After that, the next big push was the Epstein files. I'm sure a lot of y'all have heard about this. And this is a big one because there's been a lot of conspiracy theorists talking about this. And for all of these years, and these, I would say decades, these people that have been talking about this stuff have been mocked. They have been shunned. They've been just degraded. You have these high-ranking officials in the mainstream media just tearing these people apart, saying all this stuff's made up, these people are crazy, they need to be in an insane asylum, and that none of this stuff is true. It's all just fabricated. And next thing you know, all these files start getting released. And there's a lot of information in these files that I don't even think these conspiracy theorists could have dreamed up in their wildest dreams. Some of them did. Some of them were right on target, but some of this stuff is just so far out there. It's like, how can you make this stuff up? And after all these efforts to suppress this information and degrade all the people talking about this, suddenly they release it. As if they don't even care anymore. And then, of course, from the Epstein files, the next big push is the UFO files. And this one hits home for me because I've always been very intrigued by the UFO phenomenon. I've actually seen some stuff in the skies before that I cannot explain, that defies logic, defies physics, and these things completely change my perspective on the way I view the world, and I would actually even say they change my view on life in general. But this isn't about whether you believe this stuff or not. It's not about whether you believe it's aliens or reverse engineered technology, or if it's demons or angels, or if it's all just made up. The fact of the matter is, this has been talked about for thousands of years. It's in ancient text, and even more recently, there have been a lot of theories and a lot of discussions around the UFO topic. We had Roswell, we had Battle over LA. There have been so many instances throughout history, and especially now with the invention of modern day cameras, there's a lot of discussion around the stuff going on in our skies, in our seas, and up in space. And for years and decades, the people talking about this stuff have been mocked, berated. They've been just completely demeaned over talking about these topics.
An official announcement with no truth to it. The governor today calls for an investigation into these mysterious lights. Then he says it's all a big joke. The punchline, this bizarre news conference. But this joke has a serious side. And of course, many of you saw those lights.
They passed over the valley in March, but no one has given an official explanation as to what they were. So today, the governor announced he wanted to get to the bottom of things, but he didn't really want to know any details about those lights.
And then throughout the years, there have been paid disinformation campaigns. There have been people that actually get paid money to be inserted into these UFO communities to muddy the waters, to spread misinformation, to spread lies, and in some cases even to spread the truth, just to stir things up, just to keep people from understanding what's really happening. And we have to ask ourselves why that could be. Why would there be paid actors muddying the waters? Why would there be such a massive coordinated effort to discredit the people talking about this phenomenon? And all of a sudden, years and decades later, after all that stuff happens, suddenly the UFO files start being released. And there's no mention about the disinformation campaigns. There's no mention about how they've mocked and berated all these people all these years. They just blow all that off and they say, here's the information. Here are the UFO files. Here's everything we know. And yeah, we've been tracking this stuff for decades. We've known about it for 100 years. We have thousands and thousands of documents and videos and files and pieces of information about this phenomenon. And here it is. We're going to put it out to the public. Why now?
The Trump administration is indeed soliciting advice about how to tell the public that we're not alone. There are consultations taking place with spiritual leaders. I'm now able to confirm that.
And now we have all of these forward-facing people, these public figures that are coming out and appear to be wearing masks. And they appear to be deep fakes. And it would be one thing if they were just wearing masks and being deep fakes for the sake of, I don't know, covering up who they really are or something like that. But it seems to be so blatantly obvious and in our faces, it's almost like they want us to know that these people are wearing masks. It's like they want us to know that the entire world is a stage. They aren't hiding it anymore. All of this stuff is out in the open. It's directly in our faces, and they're making it very obvious for us to pick up on these things. And there have been so many instances over the last 5 or so years of this being the case. We have to ask ourselves, why now? Because if this stuff's been going on for all these years and nobody's really noticed, why is it so blatantly obvious at this moment in time? And when it comes to fringe conspiracies that people have been talking about for decades, a big one is weather modification. There have been a lot of people out there talking about how they're modifying the weather, all these lines we see in the sky, and all this spraying and stuff in the atmosphere, and you know, the clouds, they appear out of nowhere, and all this weird stuff. People have been talking about it. And just like the UFO thing, just like the Epstein thing, people have been mocked for it. But now all of a sudden, it is common knowledge, and they're making it very clear that there is weather modification technology. They're making it very clear, and they are informing the public that they are actively modifying the weather.
Another example is the array of technologies, often referred to collectively as geoengineering, that potentially could help reverse the warming effects of global climate change. One that has gained my personal attention is stratospheric aerosol injection, or SAI, a method of seeding the stratosphere with particles that can help reflect the sun's heat in much the same way that volcanic eruptions do.
Cloud seeding has been in the news lately, so let's go over cloud seeding. Exactly what is it? The way it works is you'll have a plane, or sometimes the cloud seeding can be done on the ground, but typically it's done with a plane that flies over or into a cloud, and it will disperse a chemical, typically silver iodide. Silver iodide inside of a cloud attracts water droplets, so it speeds up and helps initiate even faster that process of those raindrops coming together, and gives it a better chance of producing more precipitation than it otherwise would. What are some quick facts regarding cloud seeding? Typically, it will generate maybe 10% to 15% more rainfall with the right conditions. Now, that's on average. Clouds can be seeded by plane or ground generators that will disperse the agent into the air, and it will work its way up into the clouds over a period of about 15 to 20 minutes. What chemical agents are usually used? Silver iodide primarily, but potassium iodide, dry ice, liquid propane, those are the principal ones. There are others, but 90% of the time, those are the ones that are used. Now, we're talking about putting chemicals in clouds. Is that harmful? Again, completely depends on who you're talking to, what source you're looking at. Some people say that there is no risk at all with any of these agents. They're found in nature and it's all good to go. Others say they are chemicals and they are harmful to mankind.
On July 1st, Senate Bill 56 officially became law in Florida, banning the release of chemicals and other substances into the atmosphere for the purpose of altering factors like temperature, weather, climate, or sunlight intensity.
And we could debate back and forth all day long about why they're doing this, what their intentions are, but that still doesn't answer the question, which I believe is one of the most important questions of all. Why now? And when it comes to modern technology, I feel like that ties directly into the next one, which is data centers, AI. This is kind of insane because they've been talking about AI for many decades, since the 70s and 80s. And I guess you could say that AI is being scaled up now because we now have reached the point where we have the technology to do so. That makes sense. But why is there such urgency and such a push to scale AI? And if you look at the target date on a lot of these things they're pushing right now, a lot of it ties back to 2030. So why all of a sudden is there such urgency and such a push to get all of this stuff in place by 2030? What's the reasoning behind that? Why is 2030 such a significant date? And why does it matter? And when you think about something like data centers, this makes it all become very, very clear on how hard they're actually pushing this stuff, because a lot of the stuff that used to matter, climate change, the environment, natural resources, and the natural world around us, all of a sudden those things don't matter anymore at all. And that all ties back to the most important question at hand, which is, why does it not matter now? Why, after all these years, it has mattered so much? They've been doing everything they can to protect the environment, to reduce global emissions and try to save the planet, keep climate change from happening and preserve the natural resources in the environment. But now all of a sudden, when it comes to AI, all of that stuff has been pushed off to the wayside, and it's almost as if it never existed. And a prime example of this is this gigantic 40,000 acre data center that they're planning to build in Utah. I just read something online the other day where this data center is going to produce as much heat as 23 atomic bombs every single day. It's going to consume more electricity than everything in the entire state of Utah combined. And the amount of water that it's going to consume is almost inconceivable. And we're talking about consuming that amount of water in a state that doesn't really have that much water. It's a very dry state. And, again, these resources and all of these things like climate change and the emissions and all the heat that it's expending, that stuff used to matter. But suddenly, because of this giant push and this 2030 target date, this stuff doesn't matter.
When a data center pursues these lower level pre-construction authorizations that grants them the authority to begin operating with no public notice requirement and no public input or participation, that feels pretty intentional.
So that kind of approval process happening so quickly seems possibly appropriate if we're talking about an auto body shop or a laundromat. Does it make sense for a large scale power plant that could theoretically power hundreds of thousands of homes?
Not to me, it doesn't.
As it seeks to expand, Stargate developers have since applied for other permits that seem to better suit the sprawling data center. Critics say this small first, big later strategy enables data centers to get a foothold in a community without public input, and to make it harder or even impossible to stop them once construction has already begun. But even with the correct permits, Catherine seriously doubts that the Texas environmental regulatory bodies have the capacity to hold polluters accountable.
The data center industry is expanding at a rate that is beyond the capability of the Texas Commission on Environmental Quality to sufficiently regulate. We have seen enforcement cases this past year that were 10 years old. These air pollutants, they don't go up into the atmosphere and go away. We know that these facilities are emitting volatile organic compounds, NOx, and particulate matter. And the health impacts are respiratory, cardiovascular, people with asthma or children and elderly people in these communities. Those are the folks that are going to be suffering from this air pollution and massive amounts of air pollution.
This is what the drinking water now looks like next to that data center. And I think both of us can agree that neither one of these things are drinkable.
And just like with these deepfakes we're seeing, and this world stage, this giant circus that's playing out in front of us, where everything is so blatantly obvious, they're basically just making their intentions well known. They're making sure that everyone knows exactly what they're planning, exactly what they're doing, and they're not hiding anything. It's all out there in the public. It doesn't matter how much ill intent these people have, how crazy the things that they're planning are, how much they want to surveil us and control us. They're putting everything out there. It's as if they want us to know. And that all ties back to the most important question of all, which is, why now? Why is all this stuff coming to light now? What is so significant about 2030? Why is it that all these things that used to matter suddenly don't matter anymore? Is it because society has become so numb and so dumbed down that we simply don't care? They know that they can put whatever they want out into the public and we're not going to do anything. As a matter of fact, we're not even going to react. Is that why they feel like they're able to put these UFO files out there and say that it's going to disrupt all of religion and change the way we view everything? Because they know that we're at a point now in society where we've lost so much trust in everything around us that even if they put out blatant facts and it is proof, tangible proof that we can see with our own two eyes, that we won't believe it because we no longer trust them. We no longer trust the establishment. We no longer trust each other. We don't even trust our own two eyes. Or is the reason they're doing this because they know in a few years it's not going to matter anyway? And this is the leading theory that I've heard people talk about, and that is the fact that there could be a push towards this 2030 date because some event is going to happen. And a lot of us won't be here to even remember any of this stuff anyway. So maybe they feel like now they can put out whatever the heck they want with no repercussions because in a few years, it's all going to be wiped clean. Or is the reason all this stuff is coming out now something a lot less nefarious? Is it simply because they now want full transparency? The people have asked for it, they have demanded transparency, and now we've reached a point in society where that is exactly what they're giving us. And is it possible that all of this ties directly into all the other stuff that's going on in the world today? The devaluation of the dollar, the impending economic collapse, the impending societal collapse, all the division, all the conflict that's going on around the world. Is it merely a coincidence that so many of us at this very moment feel like we're losing time, like our timeline is split, and like everything has changed? Is this a part of some sort of prophecy? Is this all planned and coordinated? Or is it just the way that things are meant to play out? Be sure to share your thoughts about why, after all these years, all this stuff is coming out and happening now. Because if we can answer that question, we can start to understand what we're up against, we can start to understand what's coming, and we can start to prepare for it.
All right, guys. Yeah. So I definitely think that is the $1 million question. Why did all of this shit start happening now? Why? And like he brought up all the files, the JFK, the Epstein, the UFO, and whatever else came out after that or before, whatever, right? I personally think all of those were connected. I think there was a reason why they dropped them in that particular order, because I think one was kind of like a breadcrumb to the next, and then, so on and so forth. But this type of stuff is going to keep happening. These type of files, all this disclosed information. By the way, I saw Disclosure Day, so we're going to do a video on that tomorrow. But getting back to the point, all of this stuff is going to get disclosed, and all of this stuff is going to pop out, like AI centers and all this stuff, because we don't do anything about it. So they're just going to roll it out, drip feed it, kind of redact it. People read it. People will get online posts, be like, "Oh, this is terrible. How are they doing this? Why are we letting them do this?" But no one's really gonna, like, someone's gonna say that, but then like put their phone on the charger, go to bed, and get up to go to work for the same company that apparently, like, let's say same person's doing this, and let's say they found out Bill Gates is doing this. They're gonna go back to work at Microsoft that same day, or later that day, or next day. You know what I'm saying? That's like the delusion we live in. Like we as people want them to do something, but they're the ones doing it. So what would they do? Nothing. They're not going to do nothing. That's why nothing gets solved. And we're getting to the point where I'm not saying, be hyper violent, hyper lethal, but protests don't do nothing. Holding up these cards and standing in the middle of the street and doing all that stuff, that doesn't do anything. You have to physically stop these people from doing what they're doing. I'm not saying be a martyr. I'm not saying be a necessarily a full blown rebel, but we gotta be like, no. They tell us no, we gotta tell them no. That's how I see it. Because they don't control us, we're supposed to control them. Technically, we're supposed to have the power, but kind of gave that power up along the way of, now 250 years, right? But now look at us. Now things are just happening left and right, and we're trying so hard to react to it, but we're tired. We are tired. We are exhausted because how are we supposed to predict all this stuff? You got meteors dropping over here, dolphins dragging people underwater here, mall aliens over there, this going out over there, this happening over there, mothership in Korea, this, that. You have so much we're finding out in 1 year. We're only half the year in, guys. This is only half the year. So we have to like really come together and figure this shit out, guys. Like we got to figure it out. A, see if it's real. B, if it's real, we have to do something about it. Fix the problem, something, right? But all right, guys, that's my video for today. Be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Please be sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I see you guys viewing it. I see you guys liking it. Just subscribe, bro. Hit that notification. Hit that notification down. Like I said, I'm gonna leave my credentials in my bio. I have my Patreon set up. I'm gonna start setting up some merch here soon for that. And we're working on a whole couple things. Check me out on TikTok shop as well. I'm starting to get my TikTok shop back. So hit me up on there. I'm gonna tag all of that stuff down in the description below. And peace.